Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Sunday, July 14th. Before we get into the play of the day, we'll quickly recap what happened yesterday. We picked up another winner in Summer League with the Houston Rockets minus 3.5, as they were able to defeat the Denver Nuggets. Game was pretty close at halftime, then the Rockets blew it open in the third quarter, and they were able to coast to a very nice victory as we got them at 3.5. Yep, thanks, well, appreciate it. Sorry this video is coming out pretty late, but I feel like most people, I was busy watching arguably one of the best tennis matches of all time. Happy Djokovic won. Somebody reached out to me on Twitter and asked what I thought about the matches, and I thought that Djokovic would win. Overall, definitely a thrilling match. Federer choked when he was up 40-15, serving it out with 2 championship points. How's it going, CR? Thanks for joining us. Overall, great match. In terms of tennis, I don't really know who the greatest of all time is anymore. I'd probably still lean Federer slightly, but I definitely think Djokovic has a firm hold on the number 2 spot, as I personally think he's passed Nadal as the second best tennis player of all time on the men's side. But either or, thanks, Michael. With that being said, we're actually going to dive back into Summer League basketball. Before we do that, quick announcement. I know that one person in the last video requested that I would resume my MLB leans in addition to the plays of the day, and I will be resuming those starting tomorrow. Sorry it took so long, but overall, simply just watching tennis, and there's no point in giving out leans in baseball now when about half of the card has already taken place. So I'm going to skip that, but we will resume the MLB leans tomorrow. So with that being said, we're going to dive into the play of the day. And we're going to be looking at the semifinals of the NBA Summer League. And there is a matchup between the Brooklyn Nets, the team that I personally root for, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And in this game, we're actually going to be siding with the underdog here. The Nets are favored by 2, but we actually like the Timberwolves on the money line at plus 110, as we think the Timberwolves will be able to get the job done here and make it to the Summer League championship game. In terms of why I like this, the Nets overall looked really solid yesterday against the Timberwolves. Against the Pistons, I should say, as they ended up winning by 20. However, the Nets have been using some of their actual starters and people from their main rotation. As Jared Allen, for example, the starting center from last year, had 30-something points and double-digit rebounds yesterday. And you have to start wondering when they're going to start limiting his minutes, knowing that he will be a key contributor on the actual roster. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Nets, as they've already played 5 Summer League games, kind of pull the plug on him a little bit and to give him fewer minutes moving forward. But other than that, the Nets did look really solid. But in terms of their actual lineup, I simply just think that Minnesota is the deeper team. If you look at who the Nets have been using in the starting lineup, you have Allen, who was a starter last year, Kurucs, who was a somewhat starter last year occasionally, not a big scorer. You have Musa, who was the first-round pick from 2 years ago, who has been pretty underwhelming in the Summer League, to say the least. Pinson's been okay. Gray's been good. But other than that, besides Cordiner, who was great yesterday, French combo guard. Other than that, and Brima, who had 4 blocks off the bench, they really just don't get really much production from their bench. And I definitely think that Minnesota has the height inside to give the Nets some problems. Allen did whatever he wanted yesterday because Matt Costello, the white Michigan State big man from a couple of years ago, if you remember who he is, had to guard him and simply just was overmatched. Naz Reid, on the other end, second-round pick from LSU, is definitely a bigger body. I think he will be able to handle Allen in the low post, and I think that Minnesota's depth will cause some serious issues for the Nets in this one. Do I think that the overall, I just think the Nets shouldn't even be favored. I think that the Timberwolves should be a 1 or a 2 point favorite here. So I think there is a lot of value on Minnesota. Minnesota's undefeated in the Summer League for a reason. And as I mentioned yesterday with the Rockets, one of the perks of Summer League basketball is that while some teams are resting some of their key contributors for the regular season, other teams filled up their entire roster with players who are fighting for roster spots and who aren't worth resting. So Minnesota's filled with a bunch of average players in terms of the NBA sense, but very solid college players. For example, you have Reed, you have Bates-Diop from Ohio State, you have Okogie from Auburn, you have McLaughlin from USC, and you also have Martin from Butler, Terrell from Rhode Island, Jordan Murphy from Minnesota. You just have Tyus Battle from Syracuse. The list goes on and on for Minnesota. They simply just have a lot of solid players on their roster, very deep rotation, and pretty much all of them are not guaranteed roster spots with the exception of probably Bates-Diop and maybe Naz Reid. So based on that, I think that the Timberwolves will not be resting anybody. I think that everybody on the roster has an impression left to make to try to make an NBA roster before Summer League is over. So for me, I simply just think that Minnesota's players are more likely going to be playing in this one, and I definitely like the bench that Minnesota possesses compared to the depth or the lack thereof that the Nets possess. So the play of the day will be on the Minnesota Timberwolves on the money line at plus 110, which is available at at Bovada, as well as 5 dimes. BetOnline has that at plus 2, but they don't have a money line. But if you want the money line, Bovada and 5 dimes is your place to go. In terms of baseball, somebody just asked what I thought about some of the matchups here. In terms of the actual games itself, I'd have to lean to the Angels minus 1.5. I know that I hate talking about the home team and laying 1.5 runs because of the fact that they're only getting 8 at-bats if they're winning in the 9th inning. But overall, the Angels have absolutely demolished the Mariners in this series, and they have cruised through the first 2 games. It's a very emotional time for the Angels with the passing of Skaggs and how they ended up throwing a combined no-hitter on Friday, and they ended up having another great performance yesterday. I just think that the emotions are running way too high for the Angels. I think the Angels will simply just smack them today, and I think that the Angels should win this game relatively easily. So my main baseball lean, so to speak, will be on the Los Angeles Angels on the minus 1.5 run line. But thanks, Vegas. I appreciate it. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I appreciate that too. Yeah, CR, I agree with Federer. I think he's probably got, I'd say, maybe 2 or 3 years left. He's 37. You have to wonder how if he's going to be competitive in terms of making it to the quarters or making it to the finals. But being 40 and making the finals in men's tennis is pretty tough, and that remains to be seen on how he will do. But either or, definitely a tremendous match. But the play of the day will be on the Minnesota Timberwolves on the money line at plus 110, which is available at Bovada. Other than that, before we conclude today's video, quick reminder of our sponsor, PointsBet, online sportsbook in New Jersey. A couple of great deals for you, up to 2 risk-free bets up to $1,000. So if you want to bet on any sport anytime and you don't want to ruin your entire bankroll, you can simply bet $1,000, and it's basically house money, as you will simply be refunded if your bet loses. What a great deal there, but something to keep in mind moving forward. I'll leave a link in the description below for that. Other than that, that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections here for Sunday, July 14th. And good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.